ever walk into a room. And it's like instantly you feel that awkward standoff, like everyone's stuck in a game of chicken, you know?
That's kind of the feeling of a Nash equilibrium.
Yeah.
Where no one wants to change their strategy, because if they do, they might lose out.
Exactly. It's like, think about pricing wars between companies, or even countries arguing over emissions. Everyone's kind of stuck because one wrong move could cost them big time.
Right.
The problem is finding those exact equilibrium points, like precisely where they are. It can feel almost impossible, especially in the real world where things are never, neat and clean.
Right, it's always messy. And that's where this paper that we're diving into comes in, right? It's promising this whole new way of tackling these Nash equilibria.
Yeah.
Even when things get really, really complicated.
That's right. What these researchers have done, they've developed a new algorithm. You can kind of think of it like a set of instructions, right? And this algorithm helps us to approximate all the possible Nash equilibria in a certain situation. Okay, hold on. Did you say all? There can be more than one of these kind of standoff points.
Absolutely. Think of it this way. Like, you're trying to find the best parking spot at a concert, right? There might be several spots that are all equally good, depending on what everyone else is doing.
Right.
So this paper, what it does is it gives us the tools. It's like we can map out all of those potential standoffs, even in what are called convex games, which we'll get to.
Right. Yeah, you're going to have to explain that one.
Convex games.
Now, I'm not a mathematician, right? I'm picturing something involving a football and a very, very confusing game plan.
Okay, so it's actually simpler than it sounds, really. Imagine this, right? Like a public park. The more people that use the park, and they use it respectfully, right? The better it is for everyone, right?
Right.
But then on the flip side, what if everyone starts having like bonfires every night and playing loud music all night? Pretty soon the park's ruined, right?
Yeah.
So it's the tension between individual actions and the overall good. That's what this paper is trying to help us model.
Okay, so we're talking about situations where the more everyone pushes for their own benefit, the worse it might become for everybody overall. Almost like a tragedy of the commons kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. And, a really clear example that the paper actually walks through is, you guessed it, pollution control.
Whoa.
Where each country, of course, they benefit from industrial production, really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everyone suffers from the environmental damage. So it's like, how do you find that sweet spot where no one has an incentive to pollute more,
Right.
given what everyone else is doing? That right there is a Nash equilibrium.
Okay. This is making a lot more sense now that you put it that way. So they're using this example of pollution to show how their algorithm can actually pinpoint those exact equilibrium points.
Yes. They use examples with 2 players and then 3 players. And they look at where each country would set their emissions. And they would have no reason to deviate from that, given what the other countries are doing. And they factor in all sorts of things, like the revenue they're getting from production, the cost of the environmental damage. It gets really granular, really detailed.
Wow, so this isn't just some abstract theory, then they've actually crunched the numbers.
Right.
And shown how this works in a real world scenario. I have to say, I'm starting to see why this is kind of a big deal. Okay, I'm hooked, but I gotta know. We've only scratched the surface of how this algorithm actually works. What's the secret sauce, What makes this thing tick?
I think the real elegance of this paper is how they've taken these tools from one field and they've applied them to a completely different area.
Oh, okay.
Right. So finding these Nash equilibria, it actually has a lot in common with what's called multi-objective optimization.
All right, now, don't get too technical on me here.
All right.
What is this multi-objective optimization thing?
Okay, so
Yeah.
imagine you're trying to plan the perfect road trip with all your friends, right?
Okay.
And everyone wants to do something different. You want to take the shortest route possible. Your friend wants to see all the sights along the way.
Right.
Someone else just wants to stop for snacks every hour.
Right.
Finding a route.
Right.
That kind of balances everyone's wishes. That's multi-objective optimization in action.
Oh, okay. I can see the connection there. Everyone wants different things, just like in our pollution example. Each country has their own goal.
Exactly. And that's what this paper, they make this brilliant connection. They show that finding those Nash equilibria, those points where no one wants to change their strategy, right? It's kind of like finding what we call the sweet spot solutions in a related multi-objective optimization problem. And these sweet spots, they have a name. They're called Pareto optimal points.
Pareto optimal. Okay, I'm trusting you that this is all going to make sense in the end.
It will.
Break it down for me.
Okay, so think about that road trip again, right? A Pareto optimal route. That would be one. where you can't make anyone happier without also making someone else worse off.
Ah, okay.
You found the perfect compromise, right?
Hey.
No one's complaining about missing that quirky roadside attraction.
So it's like finding that perfect balance where like
Yuck.
everyone is as happy as they can be, given everyone else's needs. And this paper figured out how to use this Pareto optimal idea to find these Nash equilibria.
Yeah, what they've essentially done is they found this really elegant way to take the really messy and complex world
Of strategic interaction.
and they translate that into this more structured world of multi-objective optimization, where we have tools to find those sweet spot solutions.
Okay. I think I'm starting to pick up what you're putting down here. But actually finding those sweet spots, those Pareto optimal points, it still sounds pretty daunting.
It is. But here's where things get really clever.
Okay.
They use a technique called polyhedral approximation.
Polyhedral. Okay.
So imagine, right, you've got this really messy tangle of yarn, and you just kind of stuff it inside a box. The box itself, it gives you a rough idea of the yarn's shape. Right. Even if you can't see every single strand. That's kind of what the researchers did here. Mathematically speaking, of course.
Okay, so they created like a simplified version of this really complex problem, this box that represents all the possible outcomes.
Exactly. And here's the really cool part. Mathematicians, we're already really good at analyzing boxes, or what we call polyhedra in math terms. We have these algorithms. They can quickly find all the corners and faces of these shapes.
And those corners and faces, those are like our sweet spots, our Pareto optimal points, which are also our Nash equilibria.
Got it. They've taken this incredibly complex problem and they've turned it into something much more manageable.
That's like seriously impressive mathematical maneuvering there. So they built this bridge between game theory and this multi-objective optimization, right?
Right.
Using this box idea to make the impossible possible. Like finding a secret passageway in a maze.
Yeah, I like that.
But are there any dead ends in this analogy? What are the limitations of this approach?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because, I mean, there are always limitations, right? Every map has its blind spots. What are we missing if we only look at this problem through this one very specific lens, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the big assumptions that this algorithm makes is that the cost functions involved. So that's like how much each player stands to gain or lose. Those functions are what we call convex.
Okay, convex?
So think of it like you're walking up a smooth hill.
Okay.
Small changes in one direction. They lead to pretty predictable changes in how high or low you go on that hill.
So no, like sudden cliffs or hidden crevasses in this model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in reality, things are rarely that neat and tidy, right? Sometimes like a tiny change in one area, it can trigger this like massive, completely unexpected shift in the entire system.
Right.
So this model, at least as it stands right now, is definitely better suited to situations where the cause and effect is, more predictable, less chaotic.
Okay, so think like stable markets versus like a full-on stock market crash. Different models for different scenarios.
Right.
Makes sense. What other caveats should we keep in mind here?
Well, I mean, we got to talk about data.
Oh, good.
Because even with the most elegant algorithm in the world, you need good ingredients to get a good result in the end, right?
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. To actually use this algorithm in the real world, we need really good information about the players, their goals, the constraints they're facing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, that information is just really hard to come by.
It's true. So we've got this like incredibly powerful new algorithm, it seems.
Yeah.
But we need to be really mindful of its limitations, right?
Yeah.
We have to make sure we're using the right tool for the job. But even with all that said, it feels like this research is kind of a huge leap forward in how we analyze and understand strategic behavior, right?
Oh, for sure. This paper, it's not just about like offering a single solution. It's more like it's opening a door to a whole new way of thinking about this stuff, thinking about game theory, strategic interactions, how we make decisions in this complex world. And I think that's really exciting.
It really is. It reminds me of like, how the invention of the microscope totally changed our understanding of biology. Suddenly, we could see all these things we never even knew existed before.
Right. It feels like one of those moments for like understanding strategy and decision making.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yep.
And just like with the microscope, right? It's not just about seeing things differently. It's about the questions that we can now ask, the possibilities that open up when we have these new tools to work with.
Speaking of new possibilities, it's time to wrap up another deep dive. Listener, we hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of Nash Equilibria and this groundbreaking new algorithm that's kind of changing the game, so to speak. Yeah, and we'll leave you with this. A final thought to ponder. Now that we have the ability to map out all the potential standoffs in a system, how might that change things? How might that change the way we approach negotiation or policy making, or even just our everyday interactions? The answers might surprise you.
They just might.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.